2017 Mazda MX-5 Miata RF Launch Edition. Despite its current age, the 4th generation Miata is still a fantastic little sports car. Earlier this year, I got to have my first Mazda Miata experience with the ND Miata. It was everything I could have hoped for, and it helped contextualize just how significant the Miata is for the auto industry as a whole. Well, not even 6 months later, I got to experience the latest generation of Miata, the 4th gen, also known as the ND. Specifically, the ND1, as this was the launch version of the NDs, as we've since gotten a major refresh that's known as the ND2. Well, here it is, an RF at that, with its retractable hardtop and the launch edition from its debut year in the States of 2017. While the previous NC Miata had a love it or hate it styling, especially with its refreshed smiley face, the ND Miata proudly wears Mazda's Kodo design language. While the Kodo design language, also dubbed the soul of motion by Mazda, kinda plays into mid-aughts car design tropes of
angry headlights,
you can't deny that this is a good-looking little car. Even with
angry headlights,
the grille still creates a smile, and it creates a quite charming little car. The wheels are pushed to the corners, the roll hoops on the bodywork behind the seat evokes an old target top of old like a C3 Corvette. It's both modern yet retro at the same time. While I don't necessarily enjoy grey cars as a whole, this RF exclusive machine grey metallic accentuates the lovely curves of this little car. Inside, the interior feels surprisingly premium. Like, don't get me wrong, older Miatas were certainly nice inside, but they also felt like their budget car price. This doesn't feel like a sub $30,000 car, especially with the launch edition brown. It was this concerted push by Mazda post-Ford to move the small brand slightly upmarket with excellently crafted interiors. Yeah, it's cramped for a tall fat guy like me, but it feels nice. Mazda did a fantastic job of pushing their interior quality to a lovely sub-luxury level, especially at this price point. I would very much compare a modern Mazda to that of Volkswagen's, and I would argue that the Mazda would definitely last you longer with much better reliability over a Volkswagen. Circling back to the retractable hardtop because I think it's really neat. Like, it's a retractable Targa. I honestly thought these were a normal Targa top where you just hit a couple levers, pulled the panel off, and stuffed it in the trunk when you wanted to have some open air fun. Well, it's as easy as pressing this button on the dash. It just looks really neat as the rear body shell opens up to allow the Targa to fold into it. You don't really sacrifice trunk space as it's decently large for this tiny little roadster. However, compared to the soft top, you do lose storage in other places. The storage cubby behind the driver's seat has been eliminated, and the lock and glove box in between the seats itself is shallower compared to that of the ragtops, in order to provide room for the power roof mechanism. A neat thing that the RF gets over the soft top is that it gets a completely different gauge cluster too. But another thing that the RF costs you is headroom, which is already at a premium in the Miata to begin with. I am 6'3", and while I could sit in the ND with the top up, it was incredibly uncomfortable. Like with the NB, I just have to accept that I won't be able to live with the Miata. I was a little hopeful that the 2-generation newer design would be a little more fat American friendly, but it's not. Even with the top down, I'm almost looking directly at the top of the windshield. As for the rest of fat me inside the ND, that's arguably better yet worse than the NB for me. It's hard to describe. The NB was tight, but I was relatively comfortable, with the exception of the narrow pedal box, meaning that using my left foot for the clutch was kinda uncomfortable. With the ND, the pedal box is fine, but I think around the midsection and upper legs it's tighter. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but I honestly feel that. Rita, the owner, who's owned multiple generations of Miata, compared to the interior dimensions of the ND to the NB and says that the NC is actually the more comfortable choice due to it being slightly more fat person friendly. That's just something I'm going to have to find out for myself one day, but like the NB, it saddens me that I'm simply too large to live with one. Because the ND Miata drives simply amazing. It not only looks good, but it's that patented Miata goodness behind the wheel. In my video of the NB earlier this year, I called the Miata a quintessential affordable sports car. Well, in the current generation of Miata, that still holds true. Shifting is amazingly smooth, it steers like a dream, and the 2-liter Skyactiv G 4-cylinder jumps to attention with the eagerness of an angry beaver. ND1 Miatas only had a rated power 155 horsepower and 148 foot-pounds of torque, but it honestly doesn't feel slow. Sure, if you're used to supercars and Hellcats, maybe, but the Miata is the epitome of slow car fast. This is a car where power doesn't define it. It's the fantastic dynamics and affordable price point that defines the Miata. Now, if you want a little more oomph from your ND, going for the ND2 refresh of 2019 and newer bumped the power to 181 horsepower and 151 foot-pounds of torque. The 4-banger is hooked up to one of two transmissions, either the 6-speed Skyactiv Drive Automatic or the 6-speed Skyactiv MT manual like in this particular Miata. And with ND1 models, you had 3 trim levels to choose from, either Sport, Club, and Grand Touring. And like previous Miatas, the ND has plenty of special editions. One of them happens to be this very one. Like mentioned before, this is a launch edition. This particular model was limited to 1,000 RFs in the United States. You got the previously mentioned exclusive machine gun metallic paint, Auburn Napa leather interior, which looks great in all its brown glory, a hand-painted black roof panel, BBS wheels, Recaro seats, and some fancy chrome door plates to remind you that you got a launch edition. Mazda didn't take selling the launch edition lightly, as they offered the launch edition to their most loyal customers and emailed said customers of a narrow window to pre-order the special Miata before any remaining launch edition orders were opened up for the general public. Plus, another cool thing was once you got your launch edition Miata, you were given a custom 42mm Torno watch. Unfortunately, the watch that went with this Miata is long gone, as it's gone through a couple of owners since. But still a cool piece of memorabilia that any die-hard Miata fan would be tripping over themselves to get. This particular 2017 Mazda MX-5 RF Launch Edition is owned by current ARCA Menards Racing Series driver Rita Thomason. Rita's had a love for Miatas from an early age, owning her first NA at 23. In 2018, she participated in her first autocross event, and she was hooked. She began running Miatas in SACA, Champ Car, and Lemons, and eventually she traded her racing Miata for an ARCA car. Her last daily driver was an S550 Ford Mustang GT, but she didn't feel the same love for it as she did her Miatas. She said the Mustang was boat-like in comparison, and when that car was wrecked a couple months back in South Carolina, the lure of the Miata called her back, and found this lovely little gray car on CarMax, and she got a pretty good deal for the current times. For now, she plans on keeping the Miata as it is, but further down the road she does plan on maybe installing a flying Miata Turbo. She loves this little car, but the lack of performance options on this launch edition, like the limited slip and Bilstein shocks, does leave her wanting a little bit more. But for now, this ND Miata provides all the fun she needs for her commute. Like previous Miatas, the ND Miata is a fantastic little affordable sports car. While it is a little nicer inside compared to previous Miatas thanks to its modern amenities and fancy power roof, it still provides an entry-level step for someone looking to get into their first sporty car. While not fat American friendly, which is something honestly true for all Miatas, it's still a fantastic little car that I highly recommend for anyone who can fit. It's got modern yet retro-ish looks thanks to all the buttresses and excellent curves. It shifts like butter, attacks back roads with envy, and will put a smile on anyone's face who can fit behind the wheel. I love Miatas, and while I can't live with one, they're still a car I highly recommend to anyone. Like I mentioned in the NB Miata video from earlier in the year, I consider the Miata a benchmark car for the affordable small roadster, and the latest iteration, the ND, still proudly carries that torch. 2017 Mazda MX-5 RF Launch Edition. What a fantastic little car. Have a good day, everyone, and here's to a good 2023. Thank you once again for watching another episode of Wookie Drives. This week's episode comes courtesy of Rita Thomason of Denford, North Carolina. As mentioned before, Rita is a driver in the ARCA Menards Racing Series, and look for her to be at a track near you in the 2023 season. I'll link her socials in the description of this video, so be sure to give her a follow and support her on her upcoming endeavors. If you have a car or truck you'd like to see on the show and happen to be in the Charlotte, Mooresville, North Carolina area, email me with your submission at wookiedrives@gmail.com. That's right, submit your car to wookiedrives@gmail.com. Once again, submit your car to wookiedrives@gmail.com if you'd like to see it on the show. Don't forget to give the video a like, drop a comment with some feedback. Any feedback is good feedback, as any sort of interaction really helps this small channel grow. Share with all your ND Miata friends. And finally, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications for more Wookie Drives like these. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and we got a little special message for today from our little family.
We hope y'all have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Tommy Pickles. You probably heard his tail in the background. Have a good day.
Through this guitar, I discovered oneness with music. You should feel the same when you drive. So everything I do is for our drivers to feel that oneness with their car, the wind, and the sky.
But I can't. The first ever Mazda MX-5 RF.